and educational purposes, Carmen's Kitchen. We're on another safari, Western Urban. Hey, yeah, I'm just talking to myself, bartender, and I would say to myself, man, what is perfectionism? What is perfectionism? I mean, it just usually just puts too much pressure on me. It causes me too much stress trying to be perfect. And then how the hell am I gonna be if I'm all the time trying to be perfect? How am I gonna have time to learn anything? You know, when I make a mistake, am I just gonna be like, oh fuck it, I can't take it no more. I'm tired of making mistakes. Let me just explode, or let me just disintegrate, or you know, just let me get stressed out and act like a fool. So I don't want to act like a fool all the time. You know what I mean? Or feel like I am, you know, like self judgment, because like what I feel is like somebody else could like call you something or say something to you or do something to you, and that might not affect you as much as you taking it personal. You saying that to yourself. Somebody else could tell you something, but the real the real deal is when you believe it. You know what I mean? It's what you tell yourself. Self hypnotism. So you know what I mean? I can't be letting some stress, outside stress, hypnotize me. I got to be in control of hypnotizing my own self and balancing my own ego and balancing my emotions. And don't get hypnotized by some outside stress. Because then it's like being a gambler, right? You know, you gotta put some money down to lose. So as long as you don't bet and place your bet, you know, no matter what happened, you ain't gonna lose. Even if they say you a loser. Loser, put your money down, loser, loser. You ain't got nothing to lose. You might as well bet it all. See, that's the problem. That's what stress will do. Stress will make you like not give up. You kind of like give up. You get frustrated, and then you just it react, overreact, become impulsive, become a reactionary type of person, rather than think it all through, think everything through, and then give yourself a chance to learn, because nothing from nothing leaves nothing. You know what I mean? Pay me now, pay me later. That's how karma go, right? So if you don't learn the lesson now, you still going to have to learn it later. So sometimes a person got to appreciate that they got burned or they got took a loss, because then that's gonna make them appreciate how to deal with stress and being a perfectionist, rather than trying to feel like take everything personal, rather than saying, hey, thanks God, you showed me something, and you showed me how to deal with my feelings, my emotions, all that, how to hypnotize myself, meditate, and what to believe in, because it's like life is like a mirror, right? So whatever mirror you looking in, that's what you see. So you create your own mirror, and when you look in that mirror, you don't, you know, you can downsize a whole bunch of that other things that ain't really in the mirror. You know what I mean? I ain't saying this work all the time, but for the basic mental health in situations that people run into, stressful situations that people run into in everyday life, this is a beginning, rather than not even being thinking about. You know, self defense is not just learn how to fight physical. It's mental also. Self defense is not just physical. It's mental also. And sometimes you got to defend yourself against yourself. So, like I said, I was just having a conversation with myself, bartender. So let the
This is one of those
so
things I
let it
tell
be
you
written.
never
So
to
let it be
say
done.
during a job interview when they ask you what your greatest weakness is, because it's like a humble brag. But I struggle with perfectionism. Like, where other people are willing to just
Me
say
too.
things are good enough, or they quite rightly realize that little tiny details in their work
It's
are
a
never
big
going to be
problem
noticed by anybody else. I'm the
because
guy
I
that's
couldn't
like
see
keeping
it.
the position of the light behind that toy ship so it makes the perfect silhouette.
I struggle
But
with self
over the past few
judgment.
years, I've learned to deal with my perfectionism, and at this point, it doesn't really hinder me that much
Self
anymore. So what I want to do
judgment.
with this video is share some of what I've learned for dealing with perfectionism, because as the writer Anne Lamott very poignantly says in her book Bird by Bird, perfectionism is the voice of the oppressor, the enemy of
Uh-oh.
the people. Now, before we move
Enemy of
on,
the
I do want
people.
to say
Enemy of
that
the self.
perfectionism isn't all bad. In fact, many psychologists will separate perfectionism into two different categories: adaptive and maladaptive. Adaptive perfectionists are motivated by their high standards.
You don't
They
leave no
pursue their
room
goals
for
without compromising their self-esteem,
for
not
humility
critical
or
of their work or themselves, and they
self-discovery.
invest massive amounts of time and energy into projects that require a lot of attention, and
or
focus, and
realistic
effort. Maladaptive
expectations.
perfectionists, on the other hand, feel constant pressure to meet an
It's
unrealistic
kind of hard to
standard.
grow.
They procrastinate because
You're
things are
stuck
so
in the
hard to
ego.
get into. They feel a lot of anxiety and sometimes even depression because they're holding themselves to an ideal they can't
Or in a
possibly
fake
reach.
mirror.
Now, I don't believe that these are two binary states. There's certainly a spectrum between perfectionism of the adaptive and maladaptive sorts. And for you, perfectionism probably has some benefits, but it probably also brings along some problems. And personally, the main problems I see with perfectionism are, number one, it makes tasks seem monumental because you want to do perfectly on them, so you procrastinate. Number two, constant tweaking and editing will cause you to never actually publish and put things out there and move on because you're always second
Yeah, that's
guessing.
what I don't. That's at least that one good part about me. No matter if whatever my art is up to quality or not, it ain't about whether it's up to quality. My art, every art got different aspects. Sometimes it's quality, beauty, how people feel about it. But then sometimes art is a message. So if the art got all this beauty and shit, but it ain't got no message, then hey man, shit. Then that part of the aspect of the art is missing. I don't, my art might not be up to the beauty standard, but my message standard is where my beauty come in. My beauty is within,
Your previous decisions.
not without.
Number three, your skill development is hampered because you aren't allowing
Not
yourself to
on
make
the
mistakes,
outside.
which are absolutely critical to the learning process. And lastly, you have a lot of anxiety and stress because you're holding yourself to
It's in
a
the mind.
realistic ideal, and you're constantly worried about your
Not the
being
eyes.
judged. So, how do you overcome perfectionism? Well, number one, you need to realize that you're not perfect, and neither is anybody else. And I realize the second half of that statement can be really hard to acknowledge sometimes because the internet is always presenting us with things that are finished and polished. Like we have so many connections to so many people, and they're all presenting a tailored version of themselves to you. They're so proud to show
Tailored
off
gang.
their labors, but they never show off the
Tailored
hours that went
gang.
into it. They never show off the mistakes and the failures that they had along the way. And these are vital parts of the learning process.
That's the stress
You can't
part.
have success
Stress
without
relief
these
part. They
mistakes.
don't show the
So
stress relief.
embrace imperfection. Embrace mistakes.
You can't motivate unless you get rid of the stress, right? So then if you got like how do they say when you be thinking too hard and your brain gets stuck and you be stuck, I forgot what that's called. But when you get that, you at a brain block or something, then you supposed to relax and then relieve your stress and then you can concentrate and then the thoughts that you want to think about it come naturally. Well, shit, that's a whole lot of stress even being able to relax. So how the fuck you gonna get rid of the stress unless you first learn how to relax? So I'm just saying, it's all dealing with humility and ego balance, balancing the ego. Because the ego causes phobia, fear, all that. And then fear is what, is a natural human instinct. So how you balance that? Because balancing the ego is like balancing fear. Because phobias, because you're looking at different mirrors. And if you don't got no experience, you don't know what mirror you looking in. You know what I mean? But the more experience you got, the more things situations you got, mirrors you got to look in and say, oh, okay, I've been through that before, or that's a new mirror, right? And that's all the mirrors is fear level, stress level. And if you already know, if you've been through it, then you know your stress level gonna go down because you're gonna participate or you not. The problem is when to participate. It's like a gambler, when to hold 'em, when to fold 'em, and when to walk away and when to run. It's like a gambler. Life is a gamble.
Realize it's going to happen.
You gotta know
Like,
when to
think back to when you were a kid
participate
and you were learning to ride
and
a
when
bike.
not to.
You probably fell off a ton of times. You probably still have scars on your shoulders that remind you of those times. And you weren't worried at all about riding the bike perfectly the first time. You just wanted to ride the bike. You probably wanted to get the training wheels off. And you tried and tried and tried until you did it. If it took so many tries to learn to do something as simple as riding a bike, why do you think you have to be able to write a paper or give a speech perfectly on the first try? Number two, just get started and let your work become a mess. Work in private and don't worry about the state of the project on the first pass-through. In his memoir On Writing, Stephen King advises to write with the door closed and rewrite with the door open. Don't worry about the state of your project during its first stage. Just get it created in its rough initial form and then invite feedback.
I guess that's what we've been doing all the time, bartender. We write with the door closed first, right? And then after we make a mess, and then open the door and then listen to it, and then we rewrite it and organize the mess into an organized. It was a stress to organize stress, because every step of the way was stress, right? Because it was like you had to be relaxed to do it, because you got to concentrate, because there's too many things going on in the mind at one time. So how you gonna organize a crowded mind unless you got a storage device, the cloud or something? Because you got um, a long-term memory and short-term memory. So I mean, you could remember something right now, but is you gonna put it in a long-term memory? Not without a storage device, because the brain can only hold so much. For it just lose that shit or forget it or just put it to the side somewhere in the subconscious. So short-term memory ain't that ain't gonna work. You got to keep a little diary or some notes or something, because the brain is always taking in new information too fast.
Feedback and constructive criticism once you're ready to start shaping the prototype into something that's truly worthy of being finished. Number 3, work with a deadline. Now, this is a practice that's helped me overcome
The
my
deadline,
perfectionism
y'all.
most. When I first started my
You see
youth,
that the deadline, right? And he gonna tell you the deadline will stress you out. So I try not to have. I do got deadlines, but I don't even be thinking about no deadline. All I know is that I feel stressed out, and I want to just do what I gotta do, and that's gonna relieve my stress. So even though there's some stress involved in creating shit stuff and concentrating and taking the time out and being bored, but you don't be bored, but it is kind of boring because you got to concentrate and sit in one spot. You got to be in one spot and be trying and using your mind. It ain't physical; it's mental, and be using your mind, man. And that can become fatiguing. That can become tiring, redundant, especially if it ain't shit coming out of it.
YouTube channel, I had a lot of other influences and creators that I like to watch.
That's making
and
you feel
because
like
of
you're
that, I had
motivating
this
yourself.
excellent taste, right? But I realized that I was a beginner, and if I wanted to meet that ideal standard with my videos, I would never be able to do that, and I would never put anything out there. So instead, I told myself I'm going to put out a video every single week. And I remember after I released my first video, I
Like
was having a
Nike say,
conversation with my
just
friend
do
Matt,
it.
and I told him a year from
I
now,
mean, not just do it. I mean, think about what you're gonna say and all that, or whatever your art is. But it's still you got to just do it. Even if you don't even put it on YouTube, it's like you got to do it for yourself. Like you say, first you do it with the door closed, then you do it with the door open. Because then the second time you rewrite something, that's when you're gonna see what you missed. That's what I always do. I be listening to some of this stuff. I be thinking the thoughts that I was trying to connect and organize, and then at the end of the whatever my essay is that I'm writing, then I can see them thoughts, right? And I can see what else I was missing, because I got an outline, I got a diagram. Now I could fill it in like a crossword puzzle or something.
I want to have at least
A
50
puzzle.
videos.
I could
And
fill it
putting
in.
those
It's
videos
like
out
a
every
puzzle.
single week, as imperfect as they may be, has helped me progress a lot.
But that's the same thing with life. It's like a puzzle. You gotta have time to relax and figure out your problems and how you gonna address them and deal with them. That's really what I'm talking about. Stress. Because sometimes I can see that sometimes people can stress you out, or you can stress yourself out, and then you can get to the point to where you can become like overreact and become a reactionary. And the only way to get out that mind, that mood, is to think about it and ask yourself, well, what's the reasons? What's the consequences? What is it? Is this stress just tricking me? You know what I mean? And is that the problem? Is the stress is the problem? Because ain't nothing for free. Everybody make mistakes. Everybody get burned. Everybody don't win all the time. Sometimes we lose. You know what I mean? A traffic ticket. That's a mistake. Don't you feel like you're getting burned when you get a traffic ticket? Or when you do something and you get some kind of infraction, or somebody accuse you of something you ain't did? Don't you feel burned? Or when somebody trick you and betray you, and you thought that you was trying to not be nice, but you thought that that these people had some damn common sense, and they didn't have no common sense at all. They have no conscience, no heart. They just was cutthroat, and then you dealt with that cutthroat person, and you wanted to do something cutthroat back to them. So we all got that, but now how we handle that is what I'm talking about. The stress. Sometimes you gotta let that shit go and especially if it's petty, and then you learn from it, and then you understand that stress ain't no joke, and that you don't want to keep doing that no more. It's getting kind of hard to trust people, folks now, bartender, because they just cutthroat, man. That's it. So you want to avoid these cutthroat folks out here, because then they gonna put their stress on you and turn you like that, where you stressed out and
Now, I realize that some people
overreacting.
say that creating deadlines and forcing yourself to put things out there at an arbitrary time isn't
So it's just
necessary.
like if somebody try to stress me out, right? They need my permission, right? So I'm gonna sit there. I'm gonna say, well, nigga, I ain't gonna be sitting here arguing nothing like that. I'm gonna try not to get into a physical altercation. I'm just gonna take the loss and get on because I know I don't want to be the one to be trying to teach your ass any motherfucking thing because I know you ain't trying to learn a damn thing. So I'll be taking a loss. So I'm gonna hold my cards in my hand. I ain't gonna play that hand. I'm gonna forfeit and walk away from the table and run if necessary. Get the fuck away from that shit. But now, if I'm forced to retaliate, then we already know it's enemy necessary. But then I ain't the type of person like that. I'm the type of person. I'm gonna do it in a way to where it's gonna be legal. You know what I mean?